Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Crop Technology 2024-2025 Student Managed Farm Powered by New Holland final presentation. My name is Sloan Cannon, and I'm from Innisfree, Alberta, and I was this year's Assistant General Manager. Before we get started, I would also like to welcome our online viewers, and please be aware that today is being live streamed and recorded. With that, I would also like to welcome our special guests here today, Alice Wainwright Stewart, the president of Lakeland College, James Smith, our CFO, Juan Chakula Kai, the board representative, the Lakeland College's friends from Kenya, Tracy Quinton, the Dean of Ag Sciences, and Darla Stepanek, the Associate Dean of Agriculture Sciences.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Travis Wagner. I'm from Stony Plain, Alberta, and I was this year's general manager. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Exits are located to the left and right of the stage and up the stairs. This is where you'll also find washrooms. Our cafeteria is located down the hall and to the left. This is where we'll be having a 20-minute intermission following our malt, barley, and salad section. Our muster point is located north of the building, across the road in the main parking lot. I would now like to ask you to put your phones on silent, and if you've not received our book at the top of the stairs, please scan this QR code.
Here at Lakeland College, we acknowledge that the land we gather on is traditional homeland, hunting, and ceremonial gathering places of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. The Plains Cree, Woodland Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux people have practiced their culture and languages on Treaty 6 and Métis Region 2 territories for generations and were the original caretakers of this land. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people call this land home today and have done so for millennia. We would like to acknowledge the history we have created together on this land and to be thankful for the opportunity to walk together side by side in friendship, learning from our past, and promoting positive relationships for the past, present, and future.
We would now like to recognize our major partnership with New Holland Agriculture. New Holland Agriculture sponsorship with Student Managed Farm Powered by New Holland is a major component to how the college runs its farm. Without them, we would not be able to do many of the things we do, and we would like to greatly thank them for all they do for us. We would also like to recognize Webb's Machinery in their support of our New Holland partnership, as they provide technical support and service to keep our operations running smoothly and efficiently.
We would also like to recognize one of our repeat donors, Roy Kubica, with his most recent donation being the Western Star, as well as the grain cart and land, which can all be seen in the picture on the screen.
We would also like to take a moment to recognize a fellow classmate we lost this year. Tarandeep Singh was a dedicated student to crop technology and an active member of our Student Managed Farm Powered by New Holland. He had a deep passion for agriculture and enjoyed learning all about Canadian ag. We would like to dedicate our presentation to him today.
This will be the schedule for today's presentation. It's also located on page 4 of the book. Once again, we'll be having a 20-minute intermission with refreshments located in the cafeteria after the barley silage presentation.
So what exactly is the Student Managed Farm Powered by New Holland? The Student Managed Farm for crop technology students means entirely managing the college's cultivated lands. This includes planning for next year's crop as well as taking off the years before crop. It consisted this year of 40 students split into 7 teams with 10 student managers along with our 6 staff advisors and all of our farm staff. We would especially like to recognize 2 members of our farm staff, Chris Sleeman, our farm manager, and Jaden Kramer, our crop technician, as without their help, along with the rest of the farm staff, all of our plans over the summer would not come complete.
This year, the crop technology students managed 16 fields for Lakeland College. If you notice on the screen, the star is Lakeland College campus. Also found on campus is fields LC13 and LC45. LC25 and LC26A, B, and C can be found 5 miles west of the college on Township Road 505. LC20 can be found 3 miles south on Highway 41. and the least half can be found 2 miles south on Highway 41 and a half mile east. The rest of the fields can be found west of the college on Highway 16 or on College Drive, and further into the presentation you will see where each commodity was this past year and where each one will be going this coming year.
Before we start our annual team introductions, I'd like to note that the presentation teams you'll see today are made up of multiple members of each of these annual teams. They will present on our commodities as well as other aspects of our farm, and with that, the executive team consists of myself and Sloan as the general manager and assistant general manager. Together, we manage our peers, prepare and run our meetings, and oversee all things on the crop student managed farm powered by New Holland. Next up, we have Rachel Nelson, our communications coordinator. She takes minutes at our meetings, created our logo for our hoodies and jackets we wear, and helped put together today's book. Lastly, we have Riley Mulligan, our special projects manager. He comes to all our meetings and takes on any task that doesn't fit within the categories of our teams, forms a team of volunteers that then complete those tasks.
Next up is our production team, which was managed by Jeremy Redmond this year. The production team is in charge of deciding field management, pesticide rotations, seeding rates and varieties, fertilizer blends, and the best agronomic decisions for Lakeland College.
Next up, we have our marketing team that was managed by Dion LaVenture this year. Together, they communicate with our local grain buyers to help sell our commodities. They work with our analysis team to ensure we have their proper inventories each year. And when they work with our grain buyers, they get to use multiple different marketing tools and techniques to strive for profitability on our farm.
Next up is our analysis team, which was managed by Avery Sardoff this year. The analysis team is in charge of running our bin yard. During harvest, they decide where each commodity goes. They have regularly checked our bins to ensure that there's no spoilage. As well, they communicate with the marketing team about grain inventories to make sure we don't oversell on our commodities.
Next up, we have our mixed farm team that was managed by Ryan Batuk this year. Together, they are the lead communications between the crop and livestock units of the student managed farm powered by New Holland. They work with the livestock team to ensure that we grow them enough feed each year, where we will allow the cows to graze each fall, and bring us proposals on cover cropping ideas as well as grazing ideas.
Next up is our crop demo team, which was managed by Callie Johnson. The crop demo team plans demos and trials for the crop technology students. They take data from each demo or trial and analyze it to see if it's an effective practice.
Lastly, we have our finance team that was managed by Jeremy Gooley this year. Together, they work to put our revenues and expenses into our QuickBooks and Excel record-keeping items. They work together to create our cost of production each year, as well as our break-even points, and they create budgets for the following year. Together, they sit down and figure out our opportunity costs for the college. As for our opportunity costs, these are costs that are typically incurred by the average producer, but not necessarily incurred by the Lakeland College's farm. These include things such as land rents and equipment and labor costs, and these values help us build a better and more accurate picture of our cost of production and break-even points. This year, we determined our opportunity cost to be about $160 per acre.
Thank you. Is there any questions? If there is no questions, I would like to invite the wheat team to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are this year's wheat team. I'm Jenna Faltimer from Kitscoty, Alberta, and I was a member on this year's production team.
My name is Jeremy Gooley. I'm from Daysland, Alberta, and I'm this year's finance manager.
My name is Janelle Page. I'm from Donnelly, Alberta, and I was on this year's crop demo team.
My name is Josie McAvoy. I am from Eston, Saskatchewan, and I was also on the crop demo team this year.
My name is Caitlin Thackeray. I'm from Weyburn, Saskatchewan, and I was on the analysis team this year.
My name's Toby Alexander. I'm from Brownville, Alberta, and I'm on the marketing team this year.
Now we'll take a look at our 2024 field maps. On LC25, along with LC26B, we had AAC Hockley, and on LC14, we went with AAC Wheatland.
For our 2024 seeding data, LC14 was 145 acres planted with AAC Wheatland, LC25 is 135 acres planted with AAC Hockley, and LC26B was 56 acres also planted with AAC Hockley. Within these three fields, we had a 32 plant count and we had a 98% germination rate. For the reasoning why we picked these varieties for wheatland was because of the lodging resistance, along with it being our wheat midge tolerant variety. And the reasoning behind why we used AAC Hockley was because it was our leaf and stem rust variety, along with it being high yielding. For our fertilizer blends here, we have 70, 15, 15, 0 for LC14. In LC25, we have 85, 25, 10, 0, along with LC26B. Our P and K are seed place, and our N is side banded.
In 2024, the college had an average yield of 50 bushels an acre with the variety AAC Hockley, which is 5 bushels an acre more than the area average in Vermilion. For the variety AAC Wheatland, the college had an average yield of 47 bushels an acre, which was the same as the area average. The difference in yield is not large enough to determine that it was based off of our students' decisions, and was instead caused by environmental factors such as high temperatures of 30 degrees Celsius for a week during anthesis. Last year we started off with the pre-seed burn-off of Paradigm, a group 2,4 herbicide tank mix with glyphosate to control our annual and perennial weeds, which consisted of wild buckwheat, cleavers, and a few small broadleaves. At the 3-leaf stage, we applied an in-crop application of Vero tag mix with Infinity FX to control our lamb's quarters, our volunteer weeds, wild oats, and wild buckwheat. We then applied a pre-harvest application of glyphosate to control the rest of our perennial weeds. Our fungicide, Miravis Ace, was tank mixed with Agro 90, which is an adjuvant that's used to help with fungicide uptake. We decided to apply a fungicide to our wheat this year as a preventative measure because our crops look very good. We had a thick canopy, high humidity, and warm temperatures, which are all conducive to disease outbreaks.
For our wheat inventory this year, we had took 450 metric tons off the combine, and we had sold 430 metric tons so far, so we have about 20 metric tons left to sell. For the market analysis, this is a chart of the futures for wheat. It's traded off the Minneapolis wheat futures, and it's kind of range-bound market this year, kind of seeing that resistance line at 635 and the floor at 550. There's a couple factors that kind of changed how the market reacted. Like Australia, they had some good wheat production, which took away some of our markets. You see a downtrend here, as well as some Trump tariffs that took in place. You see this dip right here when the market reacted, but overall it stayed pretty range-bound. Then for our wheat contracts, last year's SMF team, they had put in a placer in pace for over the summer to average out on 80 metric tons, and it averaged out to $7.72 a bushel. And then we had sold a contract to G3, a target, in September there for $8.50 a bushel. We once again in November sold to Grains Connect for $8.20, G3 for $8.15, and Richardson for $8.15. Later on in January, we had sold to G3 at $8.40, G3 at $8.50. In February, selling to Grains Connect at $8.70, G3 at $8.60. Then in March, we had sold to G3 at $8.50, $8.35, and Richardson at $8.50. For our new crop marketing, there's a couple things we took into factor. We had placed a portfolio builder through Cargill for 42 metric tons. And this is kind of to set next year's SMF team up for a new crop option. So it's a way to play the futures market without having a hands-on approach. And then we're also considering doing a pacer contract for next year's team so they can compare the two together and see how they work.
So as you can see here, these are our 2024 wheat expenses broken into category by the graph on your left and broken by field in the category or the graph on your right. As you can see in the graph on your left, input costs were the highest, secondary being opportunity cost. And as you can see in the graph on your right by field, LC14 was around $30 an acre cheaper. This is due to last year's production team looking at the soil tests and determining less fertilizer was required. Our break even for this year for wheat is $9.36 a bushel, and our average grain sold price is $8.56 a bushel. So despite this break even being so high, our marketing team did a great job selling wheat at the top half of the market. This high break even can be contributed by higher costs and lower yields. This is our total financial summary for wheat for this year. We are down around $8,000. This is all grain sold, all grain on outstanding contracts that we have not received payment for yet, and all grain in our inventory at an average market price.
Now we'll take a look at our 2025 field plans. On LC26C, along with LC19, we went with AAC Hockley, and on LC20, we went with AAC Wheatland. We chose these varieties because we used them last year and they proved to yield well. Another deciding factor regarding AAC Wheatland is that it has midge-tolerant technology.
For our inputs and yield goals, the production team sat down and compared our environmental conditions and our soil tests from Lakeland's agronomist, James Oberhofer, and came up with a reasonable yield goal of 70 bushels an acre for all 3 wheat fields. With that, we then went on to rough draft, calculate our fertilizer blends, and invited James back out to the college for more insight. After gathering more insight from James, we then went on to finalize our fertilizer blends, leaving us with 75-10-10-0 on LC19, 70-20-5-0 on LC20, and 95-25-15-0 on LC26C. For our projected input costs, we have $36.25 for our seed cost, and for our fertilizer, we have $69.02 on LC19, around $72 for LC20, and around $100 for LC26C. For our pesticide planning this year, we went with Raxel Pro as a seed treatment to protect our seed against fusarium root rot. We went with a pre-burn of Prepass Flex tank mix with glyphosate to control any perennial weeds present in our field before seeding to ensure that we have a clean field to seed into. We went with an in-crop application of Vero FX Infinity to control any broadleaf or grassy weeds present in our field. We then went in with another round of glyphosate for pre-harvest to control any annual or perennial weeds that may have emerged throughout the growing season. For our fungicide, we went with Procera Pro to protect our wheat against fusarium head blight. And for our insecticide, we went with Decis for our grasshopper control. We will only be spraying a fungicide or insecticide if necessary.
Thank you. We would like to open the floor to any questions. We would like to now invite the canola team up to the floor.
We are this year's canola team. My name is Callie Johnston. I'm from Eston, Saskatchewan, and I was this year's crop demo manager.
My name is Connor Holowachuk. I'm from Round Hill, Alberta, and I was on this year's finance team.
I'm Lannon Herzog. I grew up in Vermilion, Alberta, and I was on the production team this year.
I'm Dion LaVenture. I'm from Spiritwood, Saskatchewan, and I was this year's marketing manager.
I'm Quinn LaHoey. I'm from Rossiter, Manitoba, and I was on the analysis team this year.
I'm Austin Huber. I'm from Provost, Alberta, and I was on the analysis team this year. 2024. So this year on the college, we had Invigor Canola on LC26A, Roundup Ready on LC12, and a half and half variety of Proven and Pioneer on the Lee staff.
This table shows the fields that were canola this year and the previous crops grown. For the leased land, we are unable to get the information on the leased land as the college just acquired it this year in 2024. Moving on to 2022, the college decided to grow yellow peas on LC26A and LC12. The variety was CDC Canary. This variety is known for its early maturity and being semi-leafless. The average yield for these two fields was 29 bushels an acre, which is considered on the lower end, as the Alberta government stated that 36 bushels an acre was considered the average in 2022. Moving to 2023, on LC26A, the college decided to grow spring wheat. The variety was AAC Brandon. This variety is known for its disease resistance, early maturity, and very good yields. The average yield was 70 bushels an acre, which is in line with what Alberta Grains stated the average yield was in 2023 for spring wheat in Alberta. Finally, on LC12 in 2023, the college decided to grow silage barley. The variety was CDC Austinson. This variety is known for having very good testing weights, plump kernels, very good grain yields, and early maturity. The yield for this was 8 metric tons.
So this year on the north half of the leased land, it was seeded to a Liberty Link proven seed hybrid. This variety is resistant to blackleg and has multigenic resistance to clubroot, as well as it can be grown in all zones and has harvest flexibility. On the south half of the leased land, we grew another Liberty Link variety. This one was from Pioneer. This variety has a taller plant stand and a good standability. It is resistant to clubroot, blackleg, and has a good tolerance to verticillium stripe as well as pod shatter reduction. On LC26A, we grew a Liberty Link variety from BASF. This variety has a medium growing height and a strong standability with pod shatter reduction. It is resistant to blackleg and has second generation resistance to clubroot. On LC12, we grew a Pioneer variety that is resistant to clubroot and blackleg. This variety is equipped with the optimum glytrate, allowing a wide window of glyphosate applications from cotyledon to first flower. This allows you to control your annual and perennial weeds effectively with an effective rate of glyphosate without causing injury to your crop. It also has pod shatter reduction.
On this slide, you'll see all of our crop information for the 2024 canola crops. For the first field, we have our leased land. The yield goal for that was 45 bushels per acre. The actual yield was 36. Fertilizer blend for that one was 80-30-0-25. For LC26A, we had 55 bushels per acre as our yield goal. The actual yield was 37 bushels per acre. The fertilizer blend for that one was 90-20-0-25. On LC12, we had 55 bushels per acre again, and the actual yield for that one was 31 bushels per acre. Fertilizer blend was 90-20-0-15. Now you'll notice there's a little bit of a difference between our actual yield and the yield goals, and this is due to the week-long stretch of severe heat that we experienced during flowering.
2024 pesticide applications. I'll start with seed treatment on the left, and work my way right. The least half and LC12 were treated with Lumiderm plus Lumicend and Buteo. LC26A was treated with Buteo and Helix Vibrance. For our pre-burn application, the least half had a tank mix of glyphosate and AIM. LC26A had a tank mix of glyphosate and Conquer. And due to low weed pressure, it was deemed unnecessary for a pre-burn application on LC12. For our in-crop applications, first pass was sprayed on the least half of Lontrell to try and mitigate a Canada thistle issue. It was then later sprayed second pass with a tank mix of Centurion and Liberty. LC26A was also sprayed in crop with a tank mix of Centurion and Liberty. LC12 was sprayed in crop with one pass of glyphosate. For our pre-harvest applications, the least half was swathed. This was because from the hailstorm, we had uneven maturity throughout our stand. Therefore, we as an SMF group decided, based on variety, that we were going to swath this canola to try and preserve pod integrity and reduce shatter losses. LC26A was pre-harvested with glyphosate for perennial weed control, and LC12 received an application of Raglone to assist in dry down and straight cuttability. For our fungicide applications, due to low humidity, warm temperatures, and lower biomass at fungicide timing. It was deemed unnecessary to spray fungicide. And similarly, for our insecticides, we did not reach any insect thresholds that were conducive for an insecticide application.
This table shows the inventory numbers for canola, both harvest and current. So amount harvested according to MyPLM. MyPLM is a program that New Holland offers that keeps track of things like yield and moisture and many other things year to year and shows you trends so you can make management decisions based off those trends. It's similar to John Deere's Op Center. So amount harvested was just over 10,000 bushels. Amount delivered was around 3,700 bushels. Amount left in the bin is around 6,500 bushels. Now these last two columns correlate with amount left in the bin. So amount on outstanding contracts is 3,400 bushels and amount left in the bin is around 3,100 bushels.
So here we have a breakdown of our 2024 canola expenses. As you can see, fertilizer and opportunity costs were the leading expenses for our canola crops this year. The reason LC12's fertilizer cost is a bit lower than the other two is because last year's production team took a look at soil tests and other considerations and decided they didn't need to put down as much P and S on that particular field. And the pesticide cost on the least half is so much higher than the other two due to the Lontrell application that we decided to put down due to a Canada thistle issue. So our break even for this year, so the break-even cost for our canola this year was $12.55, but our marketing team did an amazing job selling our canola this year for an average sold price of $14.35, giving us a price well above our break-even, turning a profit.
Marketing tools in action that we got to play around with over this following winter and fall. So being on SMF as a marketing team, we have a lot of freedom to experience what we would in industry or going home as a producer. So it's a great learning experience. First, I'll talk about a no price established contract that we did through Cargill. So on November 8th, we bought an at the money put option with a strike value of $6.55 for $45. I'll move to my graph here. So these are just future values. We bought our put option right here in November, and soon after, the market reached its peak of $6.78, but being young and inexperienced, we weren't paying close enough attention and we missed this opportunity. Trump was then elected and the tariff talk began, and we saw a major dip in the canola market. At the bottom, we had an opportunity to sell our put for a profit of $24. However, we opted not to because we would lose our downside protection, so we continued to ride through the futures market. In mid-February, we locked in our futures at $6.50 and then later locked our basis at -15 with a $17.21 FOB. I'll go back here. Then, due to Chinese tariffs on Canadian canola oil and peas, along with the American tariffs and just general uncertainty in the trade sector of the world, canola found a new bottom in the first 2 weeks of March. On March 12th, we sold our put option for $75, netting us a profit of $30, and our final price is $14.69 a bushel, picked up in the yard. This was a great learning experience for us on the marketing team, as we got to play the futures market and also learn how we could potentially add intrinsic value to our commodity price and protect ourselves in a falling market. Next, I will talk about a Viterra Daily Plus contract. This contract works very similar to a pacer. We had 36 metric tons committed, and it's sold in increments of 0.46 metric tons a day for 76 trading days. The kicker is, although it was very appealing, my chart only goes to 685, but Viterra offered us a futures value of 700, but the kicker was we were locked in at a -60 basis. So how this works is every day that we stay range bound between our barrier of 593 and our accumulation level of 700, we allocate 0.46 metric tons at $640 a metric ton. However, in this dip, we dipped for 1 day below our per year price, and we had only sold 10 metric tons in between the start and this low spot. So 10 metric tons were sold at $14.51 a bushel, and the remaining 26 metric tons were on a basis contract, and we had our remaining trading days to lock in a futures value. Near the end, we had a target set for 647 to try and average 1365, which triggered, and this was the only canola that we sold below $14 for an average price of $13.65.
So an overall financial summary for our canola that we grew last year, our total expenses totaled up to $157,180, and our total revenue totaled to $170,463. Now, our total revenue does include all sold canola, all canola remaining on outstanding contracts, and all canola left in the bin, assuming we sold it for fair market value today. Now, our revenue does not include our crop insurance payout, which we just received, so our total profit will be a larger number, but as of these numbers right here, our total profit was $13,000.
2025. This is a field map for 2025 canola crops. Up there in the top left-hand corner, that's our L343 PC variety. This was chosen for its strong standability, pod shatter resistance, second generation clubroot resistance, and resistance to blackleg. On LC26B, that's our P519 variety. This was chosen for its early maturity, pod shatter resistance, resistance to blackleg, and also clubroot. And then right in the middle there, our P516 variety. This was also chosen for its great yield potential, its pod shatter resistance, and resistance to both clubroot and blackleg.
So for this year, we've set yield goals for all three of our canola fields at 50 bushels an acre. On LC17, our fertilizer blend will be 90-20-0-15. On LC25, our fertilizer blend will be 80-30-0-25. And on LC26B, it will be 90-20-0-25. All of these fertilizer blends were chosen based off environmental factors, our yield goals, soil tests, and talking with our agronomist.
So for this year's pesticide application for seed treatment, we chose to go with Lumiderm plus Helix Vibrance, as it provides that early protection against flea beetles and cutworms. For pre-burn, we'll be using Octagon tank mixed with glyphosate. For in-crop, we'll be using Liberty plus Centurion. For pre-harvest, we'll be using glyphosate for perennial weed control. And if a fungicide is required, we'll be using Proline. And if an insecticide is needed, we will be using Desis.
This is our projected seed cost for our 2025 year. So when we're going to look for seed, we break into teams as a production team, and we go around to the different vendors in Vermilion, looking at both seed cost and disease packages. So for our L343 PC variety, it was $7.74 per bag, totaling $13,158. For our P519 variety, it was $7.21 a bag, totaling $4,326. For our P516 variety, it was $741 a bag, totaling $7,410. And this is our projected fertilizer costs. When we came up with our fertilizer blend, we were consulting both our advisor Zenon and our agronomist James to figure out what number we needed to use so that we didn't under or over apply. So for price per acre, for LC17, we're looking at about $91.85 per acre. For LC25, we're looking at about $98.33 per acre. And for LC26B, we're looking at about $96.77 per acre.
New crop marketing, a few options we looked at just as a general abroad across all commodities was a portfolio builder, a pacer, and just targets above resistance lines. We committed 42 metric tons on a portfolio builder to Camrose Crush. And this contract is, since we're not here over the summer to market during historical highs, this contract is supposed to sort of do that for you through mechanical control. It's broken into 25% volumes. There's 4 tools within one tool, and there's an enhancement piece, a target piece based on profitability, a floor piece, and an averaging period. And one interesting thing I can say about this contract is that the averaging period, unlike a pacer running throughout the whole summer, the averaging period just runs through your spring volatility to try and capture historical highs. And if you'd like more information on this contract, it's quite lengthy and hard to explain, so please come see me at intermission. Thank you, and I would now like to open the floor to any questions. In the middle there. The question was this our only commodity that got a crop insurance payout? And I am going to call, who's the best one to call here? Okay, I'll call Ava to the stage.
That is an excellent question. I'm going to be doing a presentation on crop insurance later on, so hopefully I'm able to answer it then. If not, I'll come find you after and I'll explain it.
I should have said that. Okay. Any other questions? Up at the top there.
You said you sprayed for a thistle problem, and then you chose not to pre-harvest to swat because of the hail. Is your thistle problem gone, or is that going to be an ongoing issue?
The question was, is our thistle problem still there? And we did not do an application pre-harvest, and I would like to call Jeremy Redmond to the stage.
So yeah, we do still have a thistle problem there. It was last year's SMF group that decided whether we were going to spray on that field or not. We still are making plans to take care of that this year and later on into the future as well.
If there are no other questions, I would like to invite the P group to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are this year's Peas team. My name is Thomas Mormon. I am from Redwater, Alberta, and I was on the marketing team.
I'm Dawson Horner. I'm from Blaine Lake, Saskatchewan, and I was on this year's production team.
My name is Yukai Mai. I'm from Japan. I'm on the finance team this year.
So as you see here for the 2024 crop rotation, LC26C and LC17 were the only fields that had peas on it, with a yield goal of 55. Unfortunately, we weren't able to meet that yield goal due to high heat in mid-July, and the variety that was seeded for both fields were AAC Carver. For our seeding rate for both fields is 210 pounds per acre due to 8 plants per square foot target. And for fertilizer blend, the reason why they're so different on LC17, there is higher phos levels due to manure application. And for LC26C, we realize that's a little bit high for the seed. The reason why we were comfortable picking that is because of our drilled seedbed utilization and field soil moisture in the spring. For the 2024 pesticide application pre-burn, they decided to go with glyphosate with Veraxer, in-crop was Viper and UAN, and pre-harvest was Reglone.
Looking at the average yield for 2024, we came in at 38 bushels an acre. This is very similar to our 4-year average of 38.5 and very comparable to the area average in 2024 at 39. It is a little bit lower than the area average for 4 years, which was at 41 3/4. So looking at our inventory with 134 acres of peas grown, we came in around 5,000 bushels, and with our remaining bushels around 900. Looking at pea contracts, the last year's marketing team had a 20 metric ton contract to Viterra that ran over the summer. This was at $11.50. This hit during the summer, and we delivered it early September. Along with this 20 metric tons, we did another 20 metric tons that was in the bin, and we wanted to free up some bin space, and this was also sold at Viterra at $10. Looking at targets, we set some targets in the fall going into winter to try to capture some possible market value that is from lower supply and possibly more demand in the market. So we set one in October, November, and December, all with increasing values to just try and capture that value. This P chart it's the prices that we collected from local buyers, as our peas are not traded off of futures value, and so we do not have a nice graph like wheat or canola. Seen on there on the left side, that first star is our $10 bushel peas that we hauled into Viterra. The next star to the right is our $11.25 that we set a target at for Viterra. This was an 18 metric ton contract. The reason for 18 metric tons is that is the legal load limit for our tri-drive truck. And then looking at the two next stars, those are two Richardson targets that hit, both at 18 metric tons, and these were at $11.05 and $11.15.
So this is expenses breakdown for each field. Custom spray on LC17 is higher than LC26C. This is because we didn't spray on LC26C in June. And rest of breakdown are same, as you can see, and then specific numbers are provided on the book. The total expenses on LC17 is $423 per acre, and LC26C is $414 per acre. And our total cost of production for peas is about $56,000. Our break-even for peas is $11.05 per bushels, and average price we sold is $10.86 per bushels, which is slightly lower than break-even point. For financial summary, the graph on your right is total income and expenses for each field. LC17 income is higher. LC17 income is lower than expense. This is because LC17 yield was not good. And LC26 income is higher than expense. This income is based on contract price, settlement, and inventory. The graph on your left is total profit per acre for each field. We are making money on LC26C, which is about $60 per acre. However, we are losing money on LC17, which is around $37 per acre. Overall, we are close to hit the break even, but still losing about $8,000 so far. This is because, again, LC17 yield was low, and also majority of peas are produced over there.
For our 2025 crop rotation, we'll just be growing peas on LC14. The variety will be AAC Carver. We like AAC Carver because it's good yield, good sustainability, and it's early maturating. For our blend, we'll be doing 0-15-0-0. We met with our agronomist, and both parties agreed with our soil tests. This was the correct amount of phos to put down. Our inoculant will be Tag Team Bionic with a yield goal of 50 bushels per acre. For our pre-burn, we'll be applying Veraxer and glyphosate. Veraxer will be our residual with our tank mix of glyphosate to help with our top growth. In crop will be Viper and UAN. UAN will help as our adjuvant. And if needed, we'll be spraying Desis, either Desis, Pounce, or Silencer as our insecticide. And for fungicide, Delero, if needed. And pre-harvest will be Regulon to help speed up the harvest.
Projected input cost on LC14 is about $10,000, which is $76.15 per acre, and this input cost is only for seed and fertilizer. Thank you, and we'd like to open up for any questions.
If there is no questions, we would like to invite Silage up to the stage.
Hello everyone. We will be presenting on malt barley, barley silage, and corn silage. My name is Zachary Hango. I'm from Handel, Saskatchewan, and I was on the marketing team this year.
My name is Brooke Trapaka. I'm from Bonnyville, Alberta, and I was on this year's finance team.
My name is Ava Sittler. I'm from Wilkie, Saskatchewan, and this year I was part of the production team.
I'm Kian Dawson. I'm from Usona, Alberta, and I was on the mixed farm team.
So last year our barley was planted on LC20, which is 109 acres.
We decided to grow the variety AAC Connect as it has a short but strong straw strength as well as a good disease package. It is a hulled malting variety as we were originally trying to reach malt barley, but due to chitting, which is the premature sprouting of grain before harvest, we were unable to reach that and ended up with feed barley. Our original yield goal was 85 bushels an acre, but due to adverse weather conditions such as heat blasts, we ended up with a yield of 61 bushels per acre.
This graph just shows the college average, the college averages and the area averages. Our area average was 55 bushels an acre. This was from AFSC, and our Lakeland College averages was 61 bushels this year.
We chose a seeding rate of 140 pounds per acre to try and target 28 plants per square foot with a fertilizer blend of 50, 20, 10, 0. The reason our nitrogen levels were a little bit lower is we were trying to make malt, and 2-ive nitrogen can increase your lodging potential as well as your protein levels.
So for our pesticide applications for 2024, on LC20 we use Paradigm Pre and glyphosate, Paradigm Pre being a group 2 and 4, glyphosate your group 9. Our in-crop, we use Liquid Achieve and Pixaro, Liquid Achieve being a group 1 and Pixaro being a group 4. We didn't use a fungicide or insecticide due to trying to make malt, and for our pre-harvest, we swathed.
So as mentioned, the barley was swathed before we returned to college this year. We began harvest on September 10th and overall harvested 6,333 bushels, and as of this week, marketing has officially sold all of our barley.
So, where did we sell it to? Later in this presentation, I'll explain how Essential Feeds works. However, for now, we sold to Essential Feeds first, 44 metric tons at $5 a bushel. We then sold to G3, 54 metric tons at $5.40 a bushel. We sold to Viterra, 36 metric tons at $5.50 a bushel. And we sold the remaining of our barley to Essential Feeds, 14 metric tons at $5.30 a bushel.
Our average cost of production for barley this year was around $390 per acre, with input costs such as seed, fertilizer, and pesticides making up about $140 of that. If you would like a further breakdown of these costs, one can be found within your book.
So for our profits or losses, so our total expenses versus our total profit, we were down about $5,200. And for our loss an acre, this is about just north of $47.
So our barley break even, we ended up spending $396.70 per acre with a yield of 61.37 bushels per acre. So this put our break even at $6.45 per bushel.
Our 2025 malt barley is going to be planted on the leased half with 170 cultivated acres. On the leased half, we're going to be planting CDC Churchill. We chose this variety for its strong stem and resistance to lodging, as well as we just needed a malting variety. And our blend is 80, 25, 10, 0. This was just chose off of soil tests and our yield goal, which is 80 bushels an acre.
So on the leased half for our 2025 malt barley pesticide plan, for our pre-burn, we're going to be using Pre-Pass Flex as well as glyphosate. Pre-Pass Flex being a group 2 and 9. For in-crop, we're going to be using Pixaro as well as Liquid Achieve and Carrier. We added Carrier this year due to the added wild oat control that it brings with it into the tank mix. For our insecticide, if needed, as well as our fungicide, Insecticide is going to be Silencer and fungicide Persero Pro. And for our pre-harvest, we're not going to be doing a pre-harvest due to trying to make malt because the maltsters do not want any pre-harvest for malt barley.
Our projected input costs for 2025 malt barley are around $86 an acre for fertilizer and around $36 an acre for seed.
Our 2024 silage barley was planted on AL01 and LC 1516.
We received an average silage moisture of 65% on both AL01 and 1516, with an average yield of 8 metric tons on AL01 and 5.5 on 1516, both with the variety CDC Austinson, which we chose for its strong straw strength and great yield potential.
We targeted a seeding rate of 30 plants per square foot, which worked out to be 140 pounds per acre based on the germination and 1,000 kernel weight of our seeds. On AL01, we placed down a fertilizer blend of 60, 15, 10, 0, and on LC 1516, we placed down a fertilizer blend of 80, 0, 0, 0. These were both based on our yield goals as well as our soil tests. Our average cost of production for barley silage this year was around $333 per acre, with our input costs making up about 110 of that.
So on AL01 and LC 1516, for our pre-burn, we use Paradigm Pre and glyphosate. Paradigm Pre, we tank mixed this with glyphosate because Paradigm Pre is not supposed to be sprayed alone. So our in-crop, we use Liquid Achieve and Pixaro, and we didn't use a fungicide or insecticide.
This graph just shows the barley averages on the college. In 2022, it was 8 tons an acre. In 2023, it went up to 10 tons an acre. And in 2024, it went down to 7. This was just due to dry soil moisture, as well as on LC 1516, it was seeded into sod, and it was also a transition year from pasture to cropland. So we had a little bit of issues with gophers.
So how Central Feeds works. So Central Feeds is the main central feed distribution to the different SMF groups on the college. So how we sell to them is we take the cost plus 10% on our silage, so we're always making a profit. We as well look at market price from external vendors. And then how Central Feeds distributes that is they take the purchase price from us, as well as the transport and feeding cost, factor that in, and they can distribute that to the different SMF livestock groups.
2025 barley silage is going to be planted on AL01, which has 125 acres, and LC12. These fields were chosen because they're close to the college, as well as on AL01, it had fall rye on it, so the beef SMF side would like to graze it in the early spring.
We chose to put down CDC Durango on both these pieces of fields, or on both these land. It's very similar to the Austinson that we grew last year on the college. However, it has an improved yield potential, a better lodging score, and a stronger disease package. AL01 is going to get a fertilizer blend of 80, 15, 10, 0, and LC12 is going to be 65, 20, 10, 5. The reason for this difference is last year AL01 was silage barley, and then it went straight into fall rye. So our nutrients were much more depleted compared to LC12, which was just canola this past growing season.
So on AL01 and LC12, for seed treatment, we're using Raxial Pro. Our pre-burn is going to be Pre-Pass Flex and glyphosate again. Our in-crop, Pixaro, Liquid Achieve, and Carrier again for that added wild oat control. If needed, insecticide, we chose Silencer, and for our fungicide, Persero Pro.
Our projected input costs for 2025 barley silage are around $77 an acre for fertilizer on AL01 and $73 an acre for fertilizer on LC12. The difference in these prices is just due to slightly different fertility blends explained a couple slides back. And the cost for seed on both these fields is around $36 an acre.
So our 2024 silage corn is going to be going on to LC18, which is 80 acres, and LC19, which we split into 2 for a total of 93 acres.
So on LC18, our seeding date was May 14th, our silage date was September 20th, and that variety was P6909R. On LC19, the seeding date was May 15th, the silage date was September 20th, and this field was split into a west and east side. So on the west side, we used Pride 1017, and on the east side was P7202.
On LC 18, the fertility blend was 105-10-0-0, and on LC 19, it was 90-20-15-0. These were broadcasted and then incorporated, and the seeding rate for both fields was 32,000 seeds an acre.
On LC18, we decided to grow this variety as it has an early silage date as well as good drought tolerance. It yielded 11.5 tons per acre with a silage moisture of 68%. On LC19, we decided to grow two different varieties as they are very similar on paper, so we wanted to grow them side by side to see what the outcomes would be. On the east half of the field, we grew P7202, and it yielded 12.5 tons per acre with a silage moisture of 67%. And on the west side, we grew this Pride variety that yielded 14 tons per acre with a silage moisture of 66%. Although this variety yielded the highest, it didn't quite have the feed quality that was originally hoped for.
So on LC18 and LC19, for our pre-seed, we high-speed disked. This is due to wanting to have a nice tilled field to plant corn into. For our post-emergence, we used Lotus as well as a half-rate partner and glyphosate. For our fungicide, we didn't have a fungicide or insecticide because of the pre-harvest intervals.
This graph shows the college's average yields over the last 3 years. In 2022, we got 10.8, 2023 was 11.8, and this past year was 12.44.
The average cost of production for our corn silage this year was around $375 per acre, with our input costs making up about 140 of those, and our fertilizer being around $90 an acre.
Our 2025 silage corn is going to be planted on LC13 and LC1516. These fields were chosen because they're high in phosphorus and corn is a high nutrient usage crop.
LC13 is going to be going into North Star 913S, which we chose for its easily digestible starches and fibers, and 1516 is going to be going into P7211, which was chosen for its excellent drought tolerance, both with a fertilizer blend of 90-0-0-0. So after looking at our our soil test, we determined that there is sufficient levels of PK&S already in our soil.
So on LC13 and LC1516, for our seed treatment, we picked Lumigen. For our P-burn, we're going to high-speed disc. For our in-crop, we're using Lotus as well as Partner and glyphosate. And we're not using an insecticide or a fungicide.
Our projected input costs are around $66 an acre for fertilizer and around $110 an acre for seed. Fertilizer this year costs quite a bit less as compared to last year, and that's just due to soil fertility and having more nutrient availability within these fields as compared to the fields last year. Thank you, and we'd now like to open it up to the floor for any questions. Yep. Yeah, so the question was why our corn silage yield was higher this year as compared to the previous years, because the other crops had lower yields. And that is due to we grew drought-tolerant varieties, as well as corn is a C4 crop, so it tolerates the heat better as compared to other crops. Any other questions? So the question was why we are choosing to broadcast our fertilizer for our corn. No, just the fertilizer was broadcasted. Okay. Yeah, up there. So the question was, what did we use to seed our corn? And the answer to that is we used a corn planter. Yeah, in the middle there. So the question was why the malt barley didn't make malt, and that's due to chitting, which is the premature sprouting of grain before harvest. All right, any other questions? In the middle? So the question was, what causes chitting? And I would like to pass that question on to Zach.
I would like to pass that question on to Jeremy.
So chitting is caused, as Brooke said, by the premature germination in the head of the grain there. So the seed actually germinates while it's still in the head and starts growing, and the maltsters are looking for zero chitting. So that's the reason that we didn't get malt. It'd be caused, sorry, the question there was just what caused it. It would be caused by the moisture in the head. So when it did get swathed, there was a little bit of moisture that got onto the swath, whether that be from dew or rain, and that is what caused the germination of the head.
Thank you, Jim. All right, I would now like to call up our Assistant General Manager and General Manager.
Before we start our intermission, I would like to invite Matt Miklick with the Alberta Pulse Growers up to the stage to present the Zone 5 Pulse Growers Scholarship. And with that, I would also like to call up the recipient for this scholarship, Chloe Brost.
Alberta Pulse Growers, or I should say, hi, my name is Matt Miklich from Holland, Alberta, here on behalf of Alberta Pulse Growers. We're proud to support Lakeland College. Lakeland plays an important role in educating and developing the next generation that's going to enter the retail environment and coming back to the farm, bringing some innovative and open mind ideas to the industry. So we're proud to continue and support that. Each year we invite students to submit an essay to the APG for the opportunity for a scholarship, and this year's winner was Chloe Bosch. So thank you, Chloe, and congratulations.
We will now be having our intermission. We would ask that everyone please be back in their seats by 3:25, and there is refreshments in the cafeteria, which is located out this side of the theater. We are now going to start the second half of our presentation, so I'd like to invite the specialty crops team up to the stage.
Hello everybody and welcome to the 2024-2025 Specialty Crops. My name is Jeremy Redmond. I am from North Battleford, Saskatchewan, and I am this year's production manager.
I am Joe Mooney. I'm from Killam, Alberta, and I'm a member of the marketing team.
My name is Avery Sardoff. I'm from Wainwright, Alberta, and I am this year's analysis manager.
My name is Gavin Moulton. I'm from Melfort, Saskatchewan, and I was on this year's crop demo team.
So looking back into the 2024 growing year, last year's team decided to grow faba beans as our specialty crop. This was grown on LC13, which is just east of the vineyard. LC13 is a 76-acre field. It was seeded on May 18th, 235 pounds. We did choose a snowbird variety. They chose to grow faba beans on this field due to the high phos levels in the soil.
So for the faba bean fertility, there was no fertilizer put down with the faba beans. There was no nitrogen due to the fact that faba beans are a nitrogen-fixing legume, and if nitrogen is put down with them, it could make them lazy and not produce their own nitrogen. There was no phosphorus put down due to the fact that, as Jeremy had mentioned, that field was high in phosphorus due to multiple manure applications, and manure is very high in phosphorus. And when looking at the soil tests, we were able to determine that the potassium and sulfur levels were adequate and none was needed to put down. The yield goal for the faba beans was supposed to be 50 bushels an acre, and due to some complications, they only yielded 17 bushels per acre.
The faba beans were treated with Apron Max RTA, which protects against seed rot, damping off, and seedling blight. The pre-burn was Vraxor and glyphosate to control grassy and broadleaf weeds. The in-crop was Viper and UAN, and the pre-harvest was glyphosate to control perennial weeds prior to harvest. The faba beans yielded 17 bushels per acre, while the area yield average from AFSC was 39.8 bushels per acre.
So the faba beans faced many complications this year, the biggest one being wind. So on June 4th to 7th, there was reports of sandblasting. This is due to the fact that LC13, which is where the faba beans were planted, and LC45 are right close to each other. And right when that windstorm picked up, they had just floated on a forage blend onto LC45 and had tilled it. And when that wind picked up, it blew the sand across onto the south side of LC13, causing sandblasting, which then caused this picture to occur. While these faba beans were already in a fragile state, there was then multiple heat waves with lack of moisture that did not help them at all in their growing season. And because there was such a low plant level left, that opened them up to a bunch of weed competition. So things like volunteer corn, canola, and hemp, as well as lamb's quarters and wild buckwheat were able to make their way in and infest the south side of the field.
So our cost of production for the faba beans came in just under $380 per acre, with our highest cost being production and opportunity cost. If for exact numbers like insurance and custom spraying, those numbers are available in the book. So now we get to the fun part, selling the faba beans. The marketing team had quite the job laid out before us this year to sell the faba beans, especially due to such a low yield. Our break even came in at $22.72 a bushel. Our first idea was going to be trying to sell the faba beans right off the combine to save bin space here in the bin yard. We quickly discovered by phoning local buyers and feedlots that most of them already had contracts in place for the fall, so we had to bin the faba beans. The marketing team got to researching and calling around, and we even considered at one point trucking the faba beans all the way to Westlock for one of the bids we received at $10.31 a bushel. But we quickly discovered that the transportation costs did not make sense due to our current input costs with the faba beans. Thankfully, thanks to some industry connections, we were given advice to call Greenbelt Farms. They also offered us our highest bid at $10.75 a bushel, and they even offered to pick up the faba beans from our yard for free of charge due to them already delivering grain to Vermilion. So that helped save on some transportation costs. So our total loss for the faba beans was $189 an acre for a total of negative $14,395.60. That number, does not include our crop insurance, as we are still waiting on a payout for that.
So as we look forward into our 2025 growing year, our team decided to come up with 2 different specialty crops. The first one being a Piola intercrop. That's going to be growing on LC18. And the second one being lentils, going to be growing on LC26A. So LC26A is a 56-acre field just west of the college here. We are choosing to grow CDC Proclaim, which is a red lentil variety. We are planting at 70 pounds an acre as our seeding rate, targeting about 8 plants per square foot. So there was a couple things that we ran into with the lentils though, one of them being a recropping issue. Initially we had planned to grow the lentils on LC14, just on the south side of that field as a 40-acre plot. Due to some recropping issues, we sprayed Infinity FX on it last year. There is a 22-month recropping restriction on that, so just for the lentils. So we did have to move fields. We did talk to research, as LC26A is a research field. They gave us permission to work on that, or to seed lentils on that field, being that LC26A was already initially supposed to be peas, and all they need there is a post stubble.
So for the lentil fertility plan, we decided to put down no nitrogen again due to the fact that lentils are as well a nitrogen fixing legume, so putting nitrogen down with them may make them lazy and not fix their own nitrogen. However, we did put down 15 pounds of phosphorus with them just to allow for the pop-up effect to occur and for some better stem stability. According to the soil tests, they were at adequate potassium and sulfur levels as well, so there was not a necessity to put any down there. For an inoculant, we will be using Tag Team Bionic, and our projected yield goal is looking to be 30 bushels per acre.
The lentils will be treated with Evergoal Energy, which protects against seed rot, damping off, and early season root rot and seedling blight. The pre-burn will be Vraxor and glyphosate, and the in-crop will be Solo. If an insecticide or fungicide application is necessary, we'll be applying Silencer or Delaro Complete, and to control perennial weeds prior to harvest, we'll be applying glyphosate.
So as Jeremy mentioned, the second specialty crop we will be doing this year is Piola. We first got turned on to the idea of Piola as we took diversified crops with Amy Hill. We learned about intercropping and exactly what that is. What intercropping is it's when 2 crops are grown in the same field side by side. So we thought, why not give Piola a chance and see if this is a feasible crop that can be grown here in Vermilion. The Piola will be grown on LC18, which is an 80-acre field. The varieties will be CDC Hickey for the peas. The reason we went with that variety is it is a later season maturing peas, and we're hoping that it will mature along the same lines with the canola. And the canola variety is P514 Clearfield. The reason we went with Clearfield canola, as it is the only canola variety with safe enough products that we can spray on it without causing injury to the peas. Our seeding rate for the peas will be 120 pounds per acre, and for the canola it will be 3.3 pounds per acre. And for people wondering why such low seeding rates, is when we are intercropping, they recommend only doing 2/3 of the crop's normal seeding rate.
So looking at the faba bean or the Piola fertility plan, we are again looking to not put down no fertilizer due to the fact that the peas in Piola are again a nitrogen fixing legume, so putting nitrogen down with them could cause them to get lazy as well. However, there will be enough nitrogen in the soil to allow for the canola to grow. We will not be putting down any phosphorus, potassium, or sulfur due to adequate soil test levels. For an inoculant, we're looking at Tag Team Bionic again. And for a yield goal for canola, we're looking to go for 23 bushels an acre. And for peas, we're looking for 25 bushels an acre.
The peas will be treated with Apron Max RTA and the canola with Lumiderm, which protects against flea beetles and cutworms. The pre-burn, there will be no pre-burn pesticide application applied, but the field will be tilled using a high-speed disc to control any early season weeds and for residue management. The in-crop will be Odyssey Ultra Q to control grassy and broadleaf weeds. It also has residual properties to help suppress weed regrowth. If an insecticide application is necessary, we'll be applying silencer. And Lance AG will be applied to control black spot and sclerotinia in canola, and ashwagandha and Mysos forelli in peas. And to control perennial weeds prior to harvest, we'll be applying glyphosate.
So on this graph, we have our lentils projected income. We're projected a gross estimated revenue of $600 an acre for the lentils, and we have an estimated input cost of $224.79 per acre. These numbers only include our seeding and fertilizer and opportunity costs. They do not include pesticides. And for our Piola projected income, we have a rough gross revenue of $593 per acre and estimated expenses at $366 per acre. And again, those expenses do not include things like pesticides.
Thank you, and we would now like to open the floor to any questions.
I'm sorry, the question was, are faba beans typical in our area? In our rotation? So here at the college, they are not a typical crop in the rotation. The pulse crop that's usually chosen is peas, but last year's class wanted to give faba beans a try to see how a higher moisture crop would do here on the college land. Yes, sir. So the question was, do we have any experience or have we done a cost analysis of separating the Piola before it gets into the bin? The marketing team, we have done some research to figure out places, and we will leave recommendations for next year's teams on where they can get it separated, first of all being the Vermilion seed cleaning plant. We're also hoping that they will be able to do some research of their own and be able to figure out if that is a cost-effective way of doing it. Yes, sir, up at the top. The question is, what is the market availability for the lentils? Again, thanks to our classes here, we learned a lot about lentils and diversified crops. We know there is a big market for it in southern Saskatchewan. And again, we will be leaving these recommendations for next year's marketing team. But again, the onus will be on them to get these lentils sold to market. Question at the top there. The question was, do we have instances of pea leaf weevil in the area? And if so, why are we not treating the seed? And I will pass that question along to Jeremy.
So I'm not quite sure if we actually have any instances in the area. I would have to double check that with our agronomist. And on the lentils there, we are going to be treating our seed there with a Apron Max. Those peas, I believe, are also going to be treated with Apron Max. I'll have to double check on that if you want to find me after.
Yes. All right, and now, sorry. Oh, right there. There we go. Hi, sir. So the question is, what is the risk of maturity between the two crops? So the exact reason that that variety of peas was picked is we were hoping that they will mature along the same line so that either the canola is not too green or already too hard and shelling out by the time harvest comes. That's always a risk when doing intercrop, is they will not mature along the same line. So we're very excited to see the results of this next year to see if it is a feasible crop to grow. Yes, sir, or ma'am, sir. So the question is, why would we not include the cost of the pesticides? The only reason that we did the expense charts like this is we know the firm cost of seeding, we know roughly the firm cost of our opportunity costs, and we know the firm cost of our fertilizers. So I didn't want to portray a false number up there just by guesstimating what the pesticides are going to be or if we're going to need to use them. And way up top in the balcony. Yes, the question is there a cost breakdown for the faba beans? And yes, in the book, I have an exact number breakdown of the faba beans cost. The question is there a cost of production breakdown? And if you come see me after our presentation here, I will be able to get those numbers for you. Yes. So the question was a final assessment on the faba beans, run for the hills, or is it a crop that should be tried again? Many producers in the area do grow faba beans and do have success on them. Unfortunately for our faba beans specifically, everything that could go wrong did. Faba beans has been proven to be a feasible crop to be grown, and again, they did partially do the job we were asking them to do, is use up some of that phos in that field. So again, if farmers are looking at growing faba beans, there is a bunch of factors they have to look at, but it would be a crop I would recommend doing again, yes. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, what was the question? The question is, how did we accumulate such high levels of phos? And I'm going to pass that question off to Avery.
So the reason there's such high levels of phos is due to the fact that SMF Farms and the Lakeland College is both a cattle and a crop farm, meaning that we do apply manure to the fields, and it just happened that LC13 had multiple applications of manure, and phosphorus is very high in manure, which upped the levels.
The question was, how many years have we applied manure to that field to accumulate those high levels of phos? And we can definitely get those numbers for you. Another thing is we do use those fields for cattle grazing as well. So once crops is harvested off those fields, often the beef side of SMF will put cows on, especially the fields close to the college, like LC13 is. So naturally, just over time, we'll do accumulate a lot higher phos levels on fields. But again, for the exact numbers of applying manure, we can definitely get that number for you after the presentation. Yes. Sorry, sir, I didn't quite hear you. Yeah, so he said the manure has been applied to those fields for about 114 years, and he's probably not wrong about that. The question was how much manure per acre is applied, and I would like to call Rylan up to answer that question. And how much phosphate?
Yeah, so the phosphorus levels in the manure I actually don't know. We just had samples go away this week. So once we get the results back, I can let you know. And on that field specifically, it's hard to tell the rate applied, as it's mainly because we send out cow-calf pairs in the winter and the spring, and they spread it however they spread it across the field. So.
The question was, what was the soil test analysis on the phos in the field? And I'm going to pass that question off to Jeremy.
On that field there, I'd have to double check these numbers again, as I don't have it right off the top of my head, but I do believe that we were sitting at about 46 parts per million. Normal range is about 30 for that one. 30 parts per million is about sufficient. So your question was those normals level across the farm? Or sorry, was those numbers like consistent across the farm? Is that correct? On that one there, I would have to look at the soil test from fields that we haven't put manure on. We do have a couple of those fields, and if you want to talk to me after, I do have the soil tests with me.
I'm kind of scared to ask any more questions. So now I would like to invite the mixed farm team up.
Hello everyone, so we are this year's Mixed Farm final presentation. My name is Tristan Mead, I'm from Black Diamond, Alberta, and I was on this year's production team.
My name is Ryland Batuk, I'm from Foam Lake, Saskatchewan, and I was this year's Mixed Farm manager.
My name is Carly Jo Carson, I'm from Rossburn, Manitoba, and I was a part of the Mixed Farm team this year.
My name is Peyton Lair, I'm from Rapid View, Saskatchewan, and I was on the analysis team this year.
So here we just have a map of the college field. As you can see, AL01 was where we had our fall rye this year. LC 1516 was then where the bale grazing was done, and LC 45 was our forage blend.
LC 45 is an 86-acre field that has caused us some issues by having poor soil structure and excessive phosphorus levels. So to try to fix those issues, last year's mixed farm team decided to float and harrow in a grazing blend of 12 different species, which you can find listed in the book. The main reason that, or unfortunately, on the week of June 3rd to 8th of 2024, a windstorm came through Vermilion, which severely damaged the crop and led us having to reseed to an oats cover crop as well as reseed the forage blend. The reason that LC45 was so susceptible to wind erosion damage is because last year's mixed farm team decided to perform bale grazing on LC45 using pea straw bales. So we had to go back in and pro-till it to incorporate that residue. As well as I said before, the forage blend was floated on and harrowed in, so that disturbed the soil more, along with the field already having poor soil structure. And the main reason that we decided to plant the forage blend was for field rejuvenation and more grazing area for the entire SMF herd. In this slide, I just wanted to show you some visuals of LC45. So the picture to your left, which is on June 13th, which is a couple days after the windstorm came through Vermilion, as you can see, it pretty much wiped out the entire crop, but left a few plants standing, but they were severely wind blasted and lodged. And then the picture to your right is on July 8th, which is a week after we reseeded to an oats cover crop, as well as reseeded the forage blend.
LC 1516, located just west of the barnyard, was seeded to barley and was then silaged. After it was silaged, when the regrowth came up, it was grazed by the cattle, and then after the snow fell, it was then bale grazed.
So this year, the mixed farm team and the extensive grazing unit decided to work together to perform bale grazing on LC 15 and 16. So on November 7th, 44 cow-calf pairs and 12 heifers were put out onto the field to start grazing. The extensive grazing unit then decided to remove and sell 21 calves around December 19th, as well as on January 28th. They decided to put some cows into a research trial, as well as wean the rest of the calves. So currently that leaves us with 38 cows bale grazing. The reason that we chose LC 15 and 16 is because it has a heated water bowl at the Bar Farm yard site, as well as it's close to the college for hauling bales and checking on the cattle. As well, we wanted to do some soil and nutrient rejuvenation. The field also has spots that it has low organic matter, so we are placing the bales around to hopefully improve it over time. As well, the bales that we decided to use are from LC45, which is a forage oat blend, as well as we decided to purchase some hay bales from surrounding farmers. The extensive grazing unit likes to go out every 4 days and open and rotate the electric fence, as well as put out enough bales for every 4 days on each paddock. Earlier in the winter, this was 10 bales for 3.5 days when we had the entire extensive grazing unit herd out there. And currently now it is 3 bales for every 4 days. So all in all, the progress that we have seen so far is worth it in our opinion, since we are saving our yardage costs by not having the cattle in the corral, as well as the cattle are getting more exercise being out in the field, and it was a good learning opportunity for us as students.
When SMF livestock units are in need of straw, it means there is a decision that needs to be made during harvest. Do we drop our straw and bale it, or do we spread it and buy from outside sources? The above graph represents the amount of plant usable nutrients within a wheat straw bale. 27% of that will be nitrogen, 9% of that will be phosphorus, and about 64% of that would be potassium. What this means for numbers equates to approximately $20 per bale, or about $40 per acre. The fertilizer prices used to come up with these numbers are located in your book. One thing to remember with these numbers that is very variable very variable to the amount of nutrients found in the straw, as cut height and seeding rate factor into this. Another thing to consider when making a decision like this includes your soil compaction, your transport costs, and your crop residue for seeding.
LCP 28 was first purchased by the college in 2021, but we did not receive access to this land until this fall. Our plans for this land is to seed it to a grass blend to take bales off of the first year, and then come 2026, it'll be then a full-time pasture to help give LCP 21 a break. This land is currently cultivated land. As you can see here is a picture of the field. It is roughly 125 acres and is located 37 kilometers south of the college. We did have an original plan was to put this land to full-time hayland, but due to the distance from the college, it was not economically feasible to do that. And if we did keep it to a cultivated land, we would have seeded canola on it this year. The fall rye was then seeded on AL01. It was seeded directly after the barley silage was taken off. It was then grazed for 35 days with 56 head of cattle. Seeding a fall rye is a great way with Vermilion's unpredictable range to improve land use and extend your grazing days. It also helps with the soil health as suppresses weeds, adds organic matter, but there are some drawbacks that we need to take into account when seeding a fall rye. Some drawbacks are the excess of nutrient uptake and the volunteer rye, as well as it can deplete your soil moisture on a drier year.
So solid manure on the college farm is emptied twice a year out of the corrals from the purebred, dairy, commercial, and equine units. It is brought and stored into the manure yard, which is in the bar yard right across the road from the dairy barn. And that gets spread on college land twice a year. We don't know the exact amount coming up this fall here, or this spring here, pardon me. However, last spring we amounted to about 1,570 metric tons, and that was spread on the college land. Liquid manure in the fall, we had about 1.3 million gallons hauled out of the lagoon beside the dairy barn. We decided to broadcast this on the surface on LC20, which can be seen on your lower right on the map, LC25, which will be on your upper left on the map, and LCP21, which is a pasture just south of Vermilion, on your upper right of the map. Spring manure plans, we will be spreading the solid manure on the least half south of Vermilion. This is per our lease contract, as is required to have manure at least once a year, and we will be incorporating this with a high-speed disc to retain as much nitrogen as we can and prevent volatilization, as well as break up the residue a bit for easier seeding in the spring. The lick will be spread on at the same rate of 3,500 gallons per acre, once again on LCP 21, LC 12, and AL1, as these were the fields with the lowest phos levels, and this will try and help bring those levels up. We'd like to thank you for your time and open up the floor to any questions. Up in the back there. The question was, do we plan on grazing the fall rye in the spring coming up? And I'm going to pass this question to Tristan.
So yes, the extensive grazing is planning on grazing the regrowth from the fall rye this year, which will help bring down the overall grazing cost. As you can see in the book, it is quite high, but it's due to the later seeding. It was not be able to graze a whole lot, so we do plan to graze the regrowth. Up in the back.
When do you expect to get to graze the forage and oat blend that was planted on 4-5?
So the question was, when do we expect to graze, correct? Graze the forage and oat blend on 4-5, and I'm going to pass that on to Carly.
I believe that we are going to plan to graze it the following year.
Up in the back. So the question was, is our fall rye pollinated or oat pollinated? Okay. And so, I do not have the information on that. If you'd like to come see me after, I can help you figure it out. And then we are not planning on taking the seed from the fall rye or anything. It'd just be grazed the regrowth. If there are no further questions, we'd like to invite special projects up.
Hello everyone, we are the Special Projects Group. My name's Ava Britsky, I'm from Three Hills, Alberta, and I was on the analysis team this year.
My name is Riley Mulligan, I'm from Bonaccord, Alberta, and I was this year's Special Projects Manager.
My name is Simran Vora, I'm from India, and I'm on analysis team this year.
My name is Bradley Trenholm from Newbrook, Alberta, and I'm on the crop demo team.
My name is Kelsey Cullum. I'm from Weyburn, Saskatchewan, and I'm on the crop demo team.
My name's Christina Kurek. I'm from Viga, Alberta, and I'm on the production team.
So a little bit about Special Projects. Being part of the executive team, I go to a certain SMF group's meetings once a week, bring that back to the executive. If there's anything we need to go over, we will there, and we'll later bring it up in our general meetings. Also in our general meetings, if there's a task that comes up that doesn't necessarily fall under the lines of any other SMF team, I will take that job on with a group of volunteers from the SMF. Once that task is completed, we'll go back to another general meeting, and when another task comes up, I use a different group of people, so it's never the same. So one of our issues that we had this year was our LibreCart system. We didn't properly calibrate it at the start of the year. So LibreCart is linked with our Demco 1050 grain cart. So what we use it for every year is to kind of keep track of our numbers. LibreCart's a scale in our grain cart, so as you can see at the top there, we can see how much weight we take off of each field, how much we put in each truck, and what goes in what bin. So it helps us keep track of those numbers for our analysis team, and they give that to our marketing team to properly plan their contracts and where they're going to sell it. So this year, we didn't really realize we had a numbers issue until about mid-November when our marketing team almost oversold on some canola. So our marketing team and analysis team came together, tried to figure out the numbers, in which they did, so we minimized that overselling risk.
As Riley was mentioning there, we came into a risk of almost overselling, and this could lead to not being able to meet contract obligations as well as not achieving the high market prices and financial stability. It's very important to calibrate your equipment correctly so you can avoid these problems in the future.
Yeah, oopsie. So this year, when we were combining the canola and putting it into the bin, the inner door panels didn't seal correctly, so it caused it to start leaking. So we temporarily fixed that with some quality duct tape until the bin was emptied not too long ago. Now, on the college, the grain side of it, we have 17 bins, and that equals out to just over 47,500 bushels of capacity. However, 4 of those bins that are flat bottoms are unusable due to the floors are rotten out. So if we were to put grain into them, it would simply go right through onto the ground, cause a mess. And with those 4 bins, just over 7,600 bushels of unusable capacity, bringing our total usable down to just over 40,000. Going forward, we would like to put forward proposals to have those unusable bins fixed, put on hoppers, so that they become safer as no one needs to go inside. They have relatively quick and easy cleanouts, and they slightly up the overall capacity of those bins. Every bin that we're able to use has temperature cables allowing us to monitor the grain throughout the year when we have grain come off the combine, throughout the winter into the spring. We have put forward proposals to have those bins put moisture cables in, allowing us to monitor the grain moisture. And that means we could then monitor the moisture throughout the winter, spring, and fall. And then it allows us that we could know the moisture of the bin to prevent or to watch for grain heating to prevent bin spoilage or grain spoilage. So then even when we're selling to market, we know the moisture of the grain. So then when the elevators want a certain spec for requirement of dry, we know we have that. Some bins we have share multiple numbers or have multiple different numbers. So this year we're going to be redoing our bin numbers with stencils. By having different numbers, it creates miscommunication, confusion, and problems as when we're harvesting the grain, putting it into a bin, we can get confused in saying what bin we're going into and be the wrong bin. Or when it comes to selling the grain, that if some grain's already pre-sold and we pull out of the wrong bin thinking, oh, it's bin 5, when there's 2 bins that say bin 5, we pull out of the wrong bin, that could cause some serious problems. So we're going to redo that. Every bin some of them are correct, they'll get their numbers, as some get to have covered up and redo to eliminate that confusion not only for us but for future students as well.
LCP 28 bins. In 2021, Lakeland College bought the land called LCP 28, located at south of Vermilion on Highway 41, which includes 2 bins, each with 5,000 bushels grain storage capacity. But now, Lakeland College thinking to move those bins. So why we are moving those bins? Because this land is 35 kilometers far from the main campus, making grain transfer and maintenance difficult. Additionally, since we are not seeding the crops on this land, the bins are no longer needed there. There are some benefits of moving bins, such as increase the storage grain capacity to maintain current and future needs. Maintain the efficient seeds, and also that reduce the transportation time and cost between the 2 storage locations. There are some challenges of moving bins, such as cost, including maintenance, setup, and the other things, and ensuring the proper setup, such as foundation and the aeration to prevent the spoilage.
This year we did a bit of post-harvest field management. That included heavy harrowing on LC 14, 20, 25, and LCP 28. And then we used a high-speed disc on LC 17, 26B and 26C. This was just due to the residue management left on the field, as well as prepping the soil for upcoming season or seeding season.
So point forward variable rate. So what exactly is variable rate? Well, it's a type of precision agriculture that uses data from your field to decide where the best place to put your inputs are. And this leads to maximizing your efficiency as well as sustainability. So To do this on the college, Point Forward comes out and collects the data they need to then put the field into 5 to 6 different zones. And on the screen there is an example of what the zones could look like. And in each of those different zones, a different rate of fertilizer is applied. So the fields we'll be doing this on the college are AL01, LC25, LC19, and the Lakeland. This is because these fields have a lot of variability. So by using VR, we can then lower the variability and have less reduced risk of lodging, as well as even the maturity of the crop.
The chart here provides some general information from our 2024 crop insurance. Just some justification behind the coverages we chose. We went with 80% for wheat. We have an excellent growing history with our wheat, and we needed to get that 80% coverage to cover our input costs. Barley, we chose 70%. Barley typically goes for silage, so we only needed 70% there. Canola, 80%. Again, we have an excellent history with our canola, which translates to good coverage. 80% also to cover those high input costs. Peas, we went with 70%. Peas can be quite pricey to insure, so we went with 70% coverage just to cover those variable costs. Faba beans were selected as a specialty crop by last year's SMF crop tech students. We're relatively unfamiliar with growing faba beans, so we went with 70% coverage because we don't have a history growing them, and we just wanted to cover our variable costs. As far as claims go, we are in a claim position for our canola and our faba beans due to shortfall, but we haven't had confirmation back yet. Hail though, we did receive payment for a hail claim we made. We had some hail come through earlier in the season, hit the Lakeland. There's about 174 damaged acres. The AFSC hail endorsement adjuster came out and saw the percent of loss to be 14 to 16%, and we received $15,000 off that endorsement. Our private adjuster came out and perceived the percent of loss to be 20 to 27%, and we received $8,000 from them for a total of $23,000 off of our hail claim. Thank you. We would like to open the floor to any questions. Gentleman right there. I would like to pass that question on to Callie, our demo team. Riley can take it.
So the question was, why do we do so much tillage and where has zero till gone? So for us on the farm here, we do grow quite a bit of corn, and so we have a hard time seeding into that, so we do have to till all of our corn stubble. So that's a big part of it, and also coming through with our drill, it just makes it that much easier in the springtime. Don't have to worry about the hassle of residue left on the field, so that's another big decision that we make.
Okay, so on your variable rate stuff, we have them down here, have machines that have tanks that you put on about 8 different kinds of lead fertilizer so that you get the right cost.
So the question was about our variable rate and how we actually do it. Is that correct? So we work with Point Forward Solutions, so that's one of the special projects I took on this year. So they do their soil sampling earlier in the year and kind of try and mitigate that variability we have in the field. So what they actually do is, obviously we put down a different amount of fertilizer in different spots that don't need it, so we mitigate that risk in that way. Yeah, that's true. In a sense, we can get more like over applying, but then you get into other areas where we need less fertilizer, so that kind of balances out throughout the entire field. Yeah, question in the middle.
Are you VRing just the blend or each product?
We're just VRing the blend itself instead of individually in each product. Is there any more questions? Yeah, up at the top.
You identified issues with leaf repart. Are you leaving recommendations for ways that might not
Yes, the question was, we had issues with LibreCart this year, and are we going to leave recommendations for next year's SMF team? So yes, we are definitely. We don't really want to run into that problem again. So one thing that we did do this year was, after we kind of solved the problem on our own, we did have Webbs and LibreCart come out and properly calibrate and set our grain cart again. We also did it just a few weeks ago when we were moving our barley around on the field, around the college. So LibreCart actually came out with a new app, so we had to reset that up. So we just decided to go safe again and recalibrate the grain cart, but we will definitely push for them to redo it before they start combining. If there are no further questions, I'd like to invite up the crop demo team.
We will be presenting on this year's crop demo team. My name is Chloe Brost. I'm from Westlock, Alberta, and I was a member of this year's crop demo team.
My name is Jet Tannell. I'm from Eston, Saskatchewan, and I was a member of this year's crop demo team.
My name is Lauren Sayers. I'm from Vermilion, Alberta, and I was a member of this year's mixed farm team.
I'm Rachel Nelson. I was from Farintosh, Alberta, and I was this year's communication coordinator.
I'm Stephanie Marak. I'm from Dawson Creek, BC, and I was a part of this year's crop demo team.
What does the demo team do? The demo team has the ability to plan field demonstrations, fertility trials, fungicide trials, and much more. The data is then collected and analyzed from each trial or demonstration that is executed, and it is analyzed to see if it is like a viable option to implement onto farms. The picture on the left here is of a spray drone demonstration that was done on LC45. The two middle pictures is a tillage demo that was done on LC20, and the far right picture is two crop demo members weighing out wheat from a fertility trial. All of these will be talked about further in this presentation.
Last year's crop demo team had two trials that were proposed over the summer, but were ultimately not completed. The first of which being a fungicide trial on LC12, where the plan was to spray 3 strips of foliar fungicide in the field and measure the yield data from the treated and untreated areas to compare if it was an economically viable solution. This trial was ultimately not performed as it was way too hot and too dry to be conducive for disease development, and so the trial got shelved. The second trial was a plant growth regulator trial on LC20. The plan was to spray half the field with a product called Modus. This trial was designed to test plant growth regulators to see if they can help reduce lodging in fields. This ultimately was not performed as the aforementioned hot and dry conditions were not conducive to lodging being a big risk on the field. Last year's crop demo team did a fertility trial measuring banding versus broadcasting urea while seeding. The point of this trial was to measure if the yield benefits of earlier seeding are offset by the nitrogen losses incurred by broadcasting. This trial was done on LC14 on a wheat field, where they had 3 alternating strips of banded versus broadcasted urea. In the alternating strips, the broadcast was put on and then worked in with the drill that came through for seeding. There you can see our team member Stephanie collecting some of the data. Ultimately, with the results, we found that they were very similar in all of the measurements we took. There was a slight increase from the broadcasted nitrogen, but not enough to definitively say it was from these management practices.
Scott from Rocky Mountain Drones came to LC45 on October 22nd to give us a spray drone demonstration. The drone that he brought out was a DJI T50, which was equipped with RGB cameras and RTK positioning. Further details about this drone can be found in the book. To your picture to your right, you can see that the drone is preparing for takeoff. Your picture to your left, the drone is in action.
In 2024, BASF planted some canola trials on LC12 in the southeast corner of the field. There was 14 different varieties in this trial site that were replicated multiple times. There was two in-crop passes of Liberty spray to help with weed control. The pre-harvest spraying was done on September 15th of heat LQ and glyphosate. On September 5th, upon returning to the school, Caitlin Swinkles from BASF invited the students to come out and tour the plots with her. The plots were then harvested on October 8th, and the results from the harvesting can be found in the book. The average yield for these trials were 50 bushels an acre.
Caitlin has proposed for BASF to conduct a canola trial again for this upcoming year. The trial will be held on LC 17 with a 20-acre site and 2 to 3 trials. BASF likes to do their trials on the college fields because we have a well-rounded history of our weeds and pesticide use.
The crop demo team conducted a tillage demo on LC20 on October 23, 2024. The purpose of this demo was to evaluate how different types of tillage affect soil moisture retention and residue management, especially regarding spring available moisture for crops. Over 100 first and second year crop technology students were in attendance at this demo to watch the tillage and see the implements in action. Tillage in general can alleviate compaction as well as dry out wet and waterlogged areas. It can also help enhance the breakdown of residue, releasing nutrients faster and allowing them to be more quickly available to your crops. However, tillage does have its drawbacks, especially with repeated passes of tillage. It can disrupt the natural aggregation of the soil, causing it to be more prone to erosion, where you may lose some of that nutrient-rich topsoil. And if it is not part of your management plan to dry out a wet area, you may lose some of that valuable moisture as you turn over the soil, expose it to air, and lose it due to evaporation. That being said, the intensity and frequency of tillage is dependent on climate, field conditions, and farm management goals. This trial aimed to observe the performance of 3 distinct pieces of tillage equipment and assess their impacts on snow trapping, residue cover, and the soil's ability to retain moisture for the upcoming crop year. From left to right, there was a Dagelman high-speed disc brought by Horizon Ag and Turf, representing our light tillage, a Landau and Brilliant Pulvimulcher brought by Webb's Machinery, representing our medium tillage, and a Kello-built offset disc brought by Ireland Farm Equipment, representing our heavy tillage. We also extended an invite to Rocky Mountain Equipment, however, they were unable to attend that day. This is a photo taken by drone of LC20 on March 2nd. There is not a significant difference in the amount of snow between each of the passes. However, you can see that the hilltop melted a little bit quicker than the lower areas of the field.
This photo was taken exactly a week later on March 9th. As you can see, technical difficulties. As you can see, most of the snow has melted across all 3 tillage passes, creating not a huge significant difference between all the 3 tillage passes. This is an average depth for all collection dates by tillage type. As you can see, there is also not a huge difference between the snow capture. We also included a snow trap with standing stubble in between each tillage as a control variable. Data to be collected. This winter, the crop demo team collected data such as snow measurements, and in the summertime, our advisor will continue to collect the following data here, as students will be away for the summer. And in the fall, the next crop demo team will take over the trial and finish it.
This year, we dormant seeded a small plot trial of winter wheat with treated and untreated seed. We know that winter wheat offers several benefits like prevent nitrate leaching, acting as a cover crop, and can potentially yield higher than traditional wheat varieties. However, growing winter wheat on the college does present some challenges. One of those challenges being that the seeding time does not align with the academic schedule, as well as marketing winter wheat in the Vermilion area can be a challenge with the logistics of where the buyers are located. This trial aims to determine whether dormant seeding winter wheat is a viable option when the traditional seeding window is not met. By testing multiple varieties, we hope to determine which varieties are better suited for dormant seeding over the other, as well as if a seed treatment makes a difference. The varieties we planted were AEC Overdrive, AEC Wildfire, AEC Cold Front, and AEC Moats, and branded spring wheat was our control variety. Here are a few images of the demo team out with the research department seeding the trial. The plot arrangement for this trial was set up so that replicate 1 was planted with each variety treated and untreated side by side, and replicate 2 was seeded randomly. Further details on the seeding and the arrangement of the plot can be found on page 39 of the book.
For the data to be collected, the research department here on the college will be taking over the winter wheat trial over the summer when students are away. They will be collecting NDVI imagery, plant counts, heading dates, and spike lengths for this trial. Next year, when the new crop demo team comes, they will then be taking over and collecting the yield, test weight, and TKW, and the post-harvest stubble counts. The reason for collecting this information, like Chloe stated earlier, to see if there is a certain variety that does better under dormant seeding, and if a seed treatment makes a difference or not.
Our class was fortunate enough to go on a field trip out to Saskatoon to tour a wide variety of ag-related spaces, the first of which being the Crop Production Show, where we got to talk to industry professionals from every aspect of the ag industry, from grain buyers to equipment salesmen to agronomists. It was a really good way for our class to make industry connections and a really cool look at the all-encompassing area of agriculture. The next day, we got brought to the Nutrient Canola Research Facility, where we got to talk to the scientists and staff behind bringing new canola varieties to market. They took us on a tour through their whole facility, from all their petri dishes and microscopes all the way through their greenhouse, where thousands of live plants are tested. It was a really eye-opening look into the time, money, and resources used to bring new canola varieties to market. Finally, our sponsor at New Holland brought us out to the Case New Holland Industrial Manufacturing Plant. Here we got to see a variety of ag implements being made, like disc drills, air seeders, and pickup headers. We got to see a variety of different tasks being performed, from machining to welding all the way up through painting and finishing. It was a really insightful look into the sheer size and scope of an ag manufacturing plant. Thank you. Any questions? There. So the question was, how come the yields on the canola trials were so much higher than our other canola yields? And I'll pass this question off to Rachel.
Yeah, so the reason for the trial yield being higher is it was seeded 2 weeks later than the rest of the canola on LC12. So as the trials canola was growing, when we got all that heat, the heat missed the flowering stage of the trial canola. So therefore, it yielded better.
Any further questions? I'd like to invite our general manager and assistant general manager up for conclusion.
To conclude our presentation today, you can look at this chart and see our total revenues and expenses as an overall student-managed farm powered by New Holland. These values include our current inventories at a fair market value, our crop hail insurance payouts, as well as, however, they do not include our crop lack of production insurance, as well as some awaiting settlements on further contracts. As you can see, we can currently sit at a profit of just over $33,000, and some of the reasons why we sit so close to our break-even point this year was, as you heard throughout the presentation, that week-long heat blasts that led to our lower yields this year. We also faced market instability throughout the year that caused us to miss our break-even points with our low yields, and even with our marketing team's ability to sell at or near the top of the market, we still failed to reach, or for the most part, we failed to reach our break-even prices.
This year, the crop technology students compiled a list of future capital purchase investments. This list is designed for students in the future of things that we would like to have for the students in the future to be able to make decisions easier. The first on the list is our liquid manure injector. The reason for this is that we currently try to find one to rent either in the fall or in the spring, and we have a very hard time finding one to rent, and usually when we find one able to rent, it's very far away from the college. Also, having our own injector would allow us to inject the manure rather than broadcast it and steadily manage our lagoon. Next up is a biodigester, and the reason for this is for better waste management. As well, it would produce nutrient-rich fertilizer to cut down on our fertilizer costs. Also, hopper bottoms for our unusable bins. Previously stated in the presentation, we have 4 bins with floors that are rotten out. Having hopper bottoms for these bins would allow us more grain storage and high production years. And lastly is a high-speed disc, as we currently rent one every spring and fall, and we use it to prepare our soils after corn silage as well as incorporate manure.
As far as some takeaways of the student-managed farm powered by New Holland, we as managers learned how problem solving and proper communication can help us in stressful situations. As stated earlier by Riley, we had issues with our inventories this year caused by a miscalibrated grain cart. We learned that in order to properly have our inventories set, we need to calibrate our grain cart, and luckily we were able to catch our mistakes in time and communicate within ourselves and with our local grain buyers to not oversell on canola. We then had to figure out our inventories, which included, once again, recalibrating the grain cart, checking our average yields on our MyPLM, and just pounding on bins to see if there was anything left in the bin. Overall, we learned that we cannot always trust our technology to be right, and we have to double check when things seem off. An exciting development for the Lakeland Student Managed Farm powered by New Holland is that Lakeland College stakeholders are currently working on a long-term farm revitalization plan that aligns with modern agriculture practices with a focus on enhancing student learning opportunities. A key component of this plan is a bin-yard strategy that will upgrade our efficiency, safety, and provide real-world farm management skills to our students. We would like to thank our community and our potential donors for their support, and would like to, and for updates on this, you can visit us with us afterwards.
We would once again like to thank New Holland and our partnership with them. Without New Holland's help, student-managed farms powered by New Holland would not be possible. We would also like to mention a thank you to Webb's Machinery once again for all their services that they do, as well as Meridian with their donation of grain augers. Lastly, we'd like to extend a thank you out to everyone on this list. Without your help and support, none of the things that we've been able to accomplish would be possible, and we are very grateful for you all. Oh, Trav, go back. Nope. Well, is there any other questions that you might have? If there's no other questions, I'd like to invite the Dean of Agriculture Sciences, Tracy Quinton, to the stage.
Thank you very much. I just want to take an opportunity, I'm not going to keep us very long, to congratulate the students again. They do a wonderful job. I don't know if anybody realizes how intimidating it can be to stand in front of a whole group of people and get questioned, random questions from the audience. So I think you did a pretty good job there, Joe. So tips to you there. So can you help me congratulate these students again on a job well done? I also have to mention that the faculty that work with these students, I know I've taught in SMF. I was with the faculty on Monday night. These faculty commit a ton of time towards these students. I mean, they were here till 8:30 or 9 o'clock on Monday night prepping, helping these students prep for this. They really do appreciate and care about the students and their success. and I think Zenon's more nervous than most of you guys when you're getting ready to present here. They really do care about you. So I want to recognize the faculty and the amount of time and energy and effort that they put into this. It doesn't go unnoticed. There are people that recognize that and notice that. So if we can congratulate and thank the faculty. And then one more thanks that I think is really important is our senior leadership, the college, the president, the vice president, all of those that actually help support the student managed farm. This is a really unique concept to allow students to try things, to experiment with things, and to learn doing hands-on. Sometimes, as we see this year, it's not as successful as we would like, but that's part of that learning process. And we truly do value that as an institution and as faculty. These are some of the lessons that are learned that will stick with these students for a long time. So really appreciate the support that we get from our leadership at the college to allow us to do this and fully support us in this and want us to do even more and support the students and progressing forward. So thanks to senior leadership for that. With that, we have a bit of a little tradition, so I'm going to call Dan Webb up to. Every year, we've been pretty fortunate that Webb's and New Holland has supported us in this, and so I don't know if any of the second years remember this from last year, but we're just going to do a draw for a beer fridge. Go figure, it's a beer fridge, but. So we'll do the draw. One of the second years is going to win this, and then we'll break from here. And again, congratulations and a job well done. No pressure here. I don't think it comes with a fridge full of beer. Oh, we're going to redraw. Tristan. Congratulations. Thanks again, everybody, and enjoy your evening.